While Gameloft may nowadays be known for extremely complex and deep games such as Despicable Me Minion Rush and Linda Brown Interactive Story, they haven't always been. Back in the day, Gameloft were developing revolutionary mobile games. Six Guns, Backstab, Gangster Vegas and Northern Chaos Online were all top mobile games when they came out. Sure, they were all inspired heavily by PC games at the time. Six Guns by Red Dead Redemption, Backstab by Assassin's Creed, Gangster Vegas by GTA, and Northern Chaos by World of Warcraft. But despite taking lots of inspiration from other games, all of these games had their own qualities and souls detached from the games that inspired them. Arguably the best one of these early 2010s Gameloft games is Six Guns, a cowboy game from 2012. If you looked at this game without knowing what it was about, you'd be quick to say that it's just another Red Dead Redemption clone. This couldn't be further from the truth. The game opens with a cutscene that introduces us to our main character. I honestly don't know what this guy is called, so we'll just call him John. We don't get to know much about John in this opening sequence, but I'm not sure he knows much about himself either. What we do find out is that his best friend is a bottle. Anyway, John stumbles upon a young lady that has gotten into some trouble with some bandits. This mission acts as the game's tutorial. It teaches us all of the mechanics we'll need in order to get through the game, while also giving us some story. This is actually quite nice to see, as a lot of mobile games either have one or the other. After killing the bandits, taking our horse to another town to kill some more bandits, to then fast travel back to the original town to kill some more bandits, we get the continuation of the opening cutscene as well as some more insight into John's past. From the cutscene we can gather that John's wife is dead, and it appears that John is the man behind her death. But given his reliance on alcohol, we really can't know for sure. After this, we're transported to Oregon, the second and final playable area in the game. The zone is a complete opposite to Arizona, featuring lush forests, greens as far as the eyes can see. The zone is also built completely different, feeling a lot more enclosed and using elevation a lot more than Arizona. Oregon also features the only inhabited town in the entire game, Socorro Town. Socorro Town also happens to be the place where the main story picks up.
The sheriff. He and I have had a few tangles, but I don't recall why he'd be this cross with me.
Lot of nerve showing your face here, you sick son of a...
I have no idea why the sheriff is so upset with John at this part of the game, when we literally helped him kill some bandits in the tutorial less than 5 minutes ago. But I digress. We also hear from the sheriff that people have seen John's wife wandering around at night. But just as John mentions his wife's death to the sheriff, the two get interrupted by a bandit gang. The mission is really easy and just reintroduces us to standard combat in the game. For some reason, when the mission is over, they didn't animate a cutscene, so we have a few seconds of the sheriff and John standing around with nothing but text. Anyway, after this, we're tasked with finding some flowers for John's wife's grave. This mission I genuinely struggle with. Not because of it being difficult, but because the game crashed constantly. After around 3 attempts, I finally managed to pick up all the flowers and kill the bear that spawns during the mission. The mission that follows, however, was the opposite of easy. I have no idea what they were thinking placing this mission so early into the game, but they did. If it weren't for me abusing some glitches, I would probably not have been able to complete it at all. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. When we get to the cemetery, we run into some grave robbers digging up John's wife's grave. After dispatching of the bandits in the most difficult fight I've ever been through in this game, we have to chase the last surviving bandit via horse. No matter how fast you manage to get through this sequence, the bandit will always manage to escape. So John heads back to the cemetery, back to another cutscene. I won't talk more about the story after this point since I don't want to spoil anything, and also because I haven't actually gone far enough on my phone playthrough. But if there is interest, I will definitely make a video going through the entire main quest. But the main quest is far from the only thing this game has to offer, even if it is the highest quality aspect of the game. Six Guns has tons of side quests, varying between shooting stationary targets, shooting moving targets, shooting stationary targets while moving, shooting more stationary targets and then shooting monsters. There's also a quest where you have to save villagers from a dungeon while shooting monsters, and then one where you have to shoot more monsters and then a scientist, and then some side quests where you have to shoot bandits instead of monsters. But there are also pacifist missions, missions where you get to enjoy the scenery and soundtrack of the game. This makes a nice blend of action and relaxation, and something to do in between main story missions. On the topic of sceneries, this game is beautiful. Sure, it might not have the best graphics on the mobile games market anymore, but when you remember that this game is nearing 10 years old, and it's on mobile? While some mechanics and the AI are definitely outdated by today's standpoint, the visuals most certainly aren't, and I sometimes find myself riding around on my horse and taking in the landscapes. Something that really aids in the atmosphere is the stellar soundtrack. I know it may not be to everyone's style, but I really enjoy the mix of Western music and other genres that this game has. Music does a lot in games, more than most people give it credit for. Really good music is not only enjoyable, it also immerses you, which is very impressive considering that music should really be taking you out of the experience. Mobile game music has been bugging me for ages. Most of them don't set a tone and have one or a few tracks running through the game, but Six Guns is not one of those games. Six Guns is one of those games where the first setting you adjust isn't the music volume. Weapons in Six Guns is probably a touchy topic, since none of them are handed out for free. You'll have to buy all of the guns in the game except for your starting pistol. This is not really a problem since you'll constantly be getting gold from just doing missions or killing monsters, but as any veteran mobile gamer will tell you, there is always a premium currency, and Six Guns is no different. Honestly, it may be even worse. The only way you can actively obtain sheriff stars, the premium currency, is via leveling up. And leveling up has a max level. And aside from that, it only takes more and more time as the game progresses. And the most powerful weapons in the game are all locked behind these sheriff stars. I'm not saying it is impossible to play without these guns, but it isn't as fun. So this is something you have to keep in mind if you're considering playing the game. It's not so much of a problem for me, but I know it is for many players, so it's worth mentioning. That being said, the weapon variety is quite nice and shifts between ranged weapons and melee weapons. Some even have some interesting mechanics such as homing projectiles. Most weapons also have damage bonuses against either outlaws or monsters, which can give some quite significant damage boosts in some content. I should probably briefly touch on clothing as well. It's not quite as exciting as weapons, but it does fill two very important roles. The first one is the objective role it has in the game. Different clothing sets give different damage reduction, meaning that the best set will reduce the amount of damage you take by a lot, which can be just as handy as having a better weapon. And ideally, you'll have both. The second role is much more subjective, but is equally as important as to the enjoyment of the game. And that is appearance, how your character looks. It will have a massive impact on how you play the game as well as how much you enjoy it. If you like how your character looks, you'll enjoy the game a lot more as well. And aside from that, clothing is great for role-playing and immersing yourself in the game. I guess the final thing I have to touch on is the multiplayer, but I was considering not mentioning it at all. I doubt you'll be able to find any matches, and for you to even stand a chance, you'd need some really powerful weapons. And that has always been the problem with Six Guns multiplayer. Any items are allowed, so people will be running around with all kinds of things. With that said, I'd be lying if I told you I didn't enjoy the Six Guns multiplayer experience. I used to play it a lot back when it released. I guess you can say I've been quite harsh in this video, and I haven't exactly been praising the game to high heavens, but I don't think I should either. This is a game with flaws. It's not perfect, and never has been. It has pay-to-win aspect, it has some wonky AI, and most importantly, no support from the developers. But no game is flawless. No game is without both strengths and weaknesses. For all the faults of Six Guns, there is also so much to enjoy about this game. It's one of my favorite mobile games of all time, and one of Gameloft's best.